untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and GrantsOfLife.org.
This is WGBB AM 1240 and W240 DFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York.
The views expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB. Live from Merrick, New York, this is SportsTalk 1240.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk 1240, right here on Long Island's WGBB, 1240 AM. Thank you for sticking with me here for Sports Talk 1240 tonight. I'll be here with you for the next hour until Bill Donahue takes over at 9. He's got a couple of great Mets-related guests. A lot of 69 Mets will be in the building, so it'll be nice to be checking out, and thank you. As I get settled in here tonight on a Sunday night, and we got a lot going on today as the Jets came up with a huge upset today at home, defending their home turf, defeating Dallas 24-22, holding off a incredible 2-point attempt at the end, as it looked like Dallas had at least forced the opportunity to take this to overtime. Big stand by the Jets defense. Great day for Sam Darnold and the whole Jets organization. They really need that, as Adam Gase got his first win in a Jets, with the Jets. As we also took a look, around the league. The Giants coming off a tough loss to the Patriots on Thursday night. A lot of big things going on, and also in New York here, everybody is still excited as the Yankees coming off a huge Game 1 victory last night. Masahiro Tanaka throwing a gem, going 6 innings, throwing 68 pitches to shut down this incredible Houston offense. And why not start there, as we'll get to the Jets in a little bit. The Yankees this year, it's pretty much been in stone since March, or at least the All-Star break. Everybody has known for sure. But really, since spring training, everybody has known that this season was about the Yankees and the Astros meeting in the ALCS, deciding who's going to be the representative for the American League. Obviously, coming into this year, you would have thought that the defending World Series champions Boston Red Sox would have had more to say, but they had kind of a hangover season, and after the year they had last year, you really can't blame them that much. But they're out of the picture right now, and the Yankees, who this year won 103 games, the most wins the Yankees have had since 2009, which was the last time they won a World Series championship 10 years ago, under Joe Girardi, who was in his second year at the time. They won the AL East Division Championship this year for the first time since 2012. So it was a long 7-year drought between division titles for this team. And also, that if you want to get for a little more closer history, they're in the ALCS for the second time in the last 3 years. And, especially the last 2 years, winning 100 games. They really came out of nowhere in 2017. Not the case this year. But let's start where I said. Game 1, Yankees won 7-0 yesterday, flexing their muscle. Tanaka, 6 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, 68 pitches. Really looked brilliant. 2-0 this postseason. Tanaka now in his Yankee career 5-2 with a 1.32 ERA in 7 postseason starts. He's won his last 3. The guy is money. I think it would behoove the Yankees to give this guy an extension. I think he's only got another year left after this, I believe. If you're going to be going on playoff runs, Masahiro Tanaka reminds me a lot of a guy that turns it on for the playoffs. A guy like El Duque, guys like that you can just rely on. It doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. When the money's on the line, they're going to come up big. That's pretty much been Tanaka's MO. He had that one, kind of bad start in 15 when they played the wild card game, and he lost to Dallas Keuchel, and that was the first Yankee-Houston playoff clash of this. Well, I guess really ever, because it was their first playoff game ever as a American League team back then in 2015. But now we're 4 years removed from that. The Astros have a World Series championship under their belt, and they've established themselves as an American League powerhouse, especially with the 107 wins that they won this year, the most in franchise history for a team that's been around for over 50 years. They came into the league in the National League as the Houston Colt 45s in 1961. So this is a team with a very long history going way back to the National League days. And, but it was a kid who would have no idea about any of that, who really changed the face of the game last night. A 22-year-old kid named Gleyber Torres, 3 for 5 last night, a home run, 5 RBIs. He was by far the best player on the field outside of Tanaka, I guess. And he really put this team on his back. You know, when a lot of people have been pointing the finger this year at guys that should be carrying the load, Gio Urshela was just incredible at times, hit another home run last night. Giancarlo Stanton was really MIA. By the way, he hit a home run last night for most of the year, I was saying. And, and Gleyber Torres quietly somehow hit 38 home runs this year. He also hit 417 in the division round with a home run and 5 RBIs. So this guy already, in 4 playoff games, has killed it. Driven in 10 runs so far this playoff. And this is the type of thing you need. You need guys to give standout performances, especially offensively. As important as it is for pitching in the postseason, you really need a guy to stand up and hit, because in the playoffs, the fact is most guys aren't gonna. The pitching ramps up, the temperatures drop down, the intensity ramps up. So the offense really isn't there as much as it is for the rest of the season. And if you have a guy like Gleyber Torres who can just not be fazed by it and just go out there and hit, that's exactly what you need. They finished the game up last night with Ottavino, Britton, and then Jonathan Loizaga closed out that game. So game 1 in the Yankees' back pocket, 7-0. Huge win for them. But that's in the rearview mirror. Now, tonight, starting right as we speak right now, it's 8:08 Eastern Time in the United States. And they're going to be starting at in just a minute or two here. They're getting underway as it'll be James Paxton going against Justin Verlander. Now, these guys have quite a different history when it comes to their playoffs, as James Paxton made his first career playoff start against Minnesota in Game 1 of the LDS, and he went 4 2/3 innings, surrendered 5 hits, 3 runs, and got a no decision for his effort. The Yankees would go on to win that game, so wouldn't really matter. But when the Yankees were behind 2-0, a lot of people were not happy that he was in the starting lineup, or he was the starting pitcher for that game, instead of tonight's or last night's Game 1 starter Masahiro Tanaka. But it all worked out in the end for the Yankees, as the guy who will be opposing Paxton tonight is one of the greatest postseason pitchers of all time. He's a surefire Hall of Famer now, Justin Verlander. 1-1 at a 3.38 ERA. It's a little deceptive, as in his first start he went out there and delivered 7 innings, a shutout ball, a run, 3 walks, and 8 strikeouts, getting the victory. And in his last start in Game 4, a very determined Tampa Bay team went out and knocked him around. 3 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 5 Ks. So he's had a tale of 2 stories this time around, but now Justin Verlander has a chance to erase that from his memory, as his teammate Garrett Cole went out, bailed them out in Game 5 in dominant fashion. Another 8-inning shutout performance. And, tonight, so these are the lineups that we're looking at when it comes to the Yankees tonight. DJ LeMahieu will be leading off for them, followed by Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres. Then you got Edwin Diaz cleaning it up with Brett Gardner and Gary Sanchez following up after that. And Gio Urshela, Cameron Maybin, and Didi Gregorius round out the bottom 3. But the curious thing in there is Cameron Maybin starting in right field, or actually left field, for Giancarlo Stanton. Now, the reason why that's curious is because Stanton hit the home run last night. He had a couple of hits. He's looked pretty good in this series. He's been drawing walks, so even when he's been getting out, it hasn't been, striking out and looking bad. And so, this guy goes out and finally gets the monkey off his back yesterday, hitting a big home run to, really seal the deal for the Yankees in the game yesterday, making it 3-0, taking a little pressure off of this Yankee team before they really busted it open late. And he doesn't get to start today. Now, I understand that. There's a lot of reasoning that goes into it. Part of the reasoning is that Giancarlo is 1 for 8 with a home run career off Justin Verlander. So the history is kind of against him there. And also the guy that was sitting on their bench was Cameron Maybin, who took his spot. He had just happened to go 4 for 9 in his career against Verlander. So when you do that against a future Hall of Famer, I guess that kind of works in your favor to get you back into the starting lineup. And, Maybin has had a decent playoff so far. Not only is he a superior defensive player to Cameron Maybin, to Giancarlo, he also hit a home run earlier in this series. So, at least on, when in theory, he's had a good playoff run too. You're not losing that much at the plate, especially if you would think. Now, I know it's just even crazy to even say that. I can't even say it with a straight look on my face that Cameron Maybin and Giancarlo Stanton, you're not losing that much when you switch them out. But, in the playoffs right now, and maybe if Maybin's playing a little above his head and Stanton's playing a little above or a little below his playing, maybe he's a little banged up too. I saw a lot of people speculating that it could be a knee issue, adding into the fact that he has bad numbers against Verlander. That why they want to ease off him, give him a day or two off, and then have him come back and play Game 3 at Yankee Stadium. As for the Astros come out and have George Springer leading off in right field, followed by Michael Brantley and Jose Altuve. Alex Bregman cleans it up, hitting in front of the just rookie sensation DH Yordan Alvarez, also Yuli Gurriel, Carlos Correa, Robinson Chirinos, and in the number 9 hole, center fielder Jake Marisnick. So, there's a lot of names you're going to be seeing a lot of from this postseason. It's not going to be deviating too much. I'm actually already surprised the Yankees went to the bench for Game 2, but they have their reasons, as I stated earlier. So it's gonna be fun to see how this plays out as we get Game 2 in Houston underway now for the ALCS, and the Yankees look to win their first one. Their first, it would be if the Yankees should win this series, it would be the first time they're going to the World Series since 2009. They lost 2 years ago in Game 7, so they've been here before. They've already won more games in Houston in this series than they did all of last series. They went 0-4 in Houston the last time, already 1-0, so they're ahead of the game. Let's just hope the Yankees can keep themselves, at least in this game. Paxton against Verlander, the postseason histories are there. But the Yankees have a history, and they did this all throughout the late 90s and the early 2000s when they went on deep playoff runs in 01 and 03. What the Yankees are able to do is wait out the great pitcher. Now, if they can stay close or tied into the 7th or 8th inning with Justin Verlander on the mound, and you can get him out of the game, you can beat up that Houston bullpen. There really aren't too many people that are scared of the Houston bullpen. I'm not saying they're bad, but it's looking a lot better for you if you're trying to make a comeback against Osuna as opposed to Verlander. So there's a quite a disparity there, and the Yankees, working that out is pretty much the best thing that they can do. And so that's pretty much the case with the Yankees now. As I'll be giving you some updates on the Yankee game as we cruise through here in the first hour, and we'll see. This is everything that you really need for the Yankees. You won that game that you needed to win. They did exactly what they needed to do. You had to go back to Yankee Stadium 1-1 at least. if they go down 0-2, I mean, look, it's not a death sentence. They were down 0-2 the last time, but that's the last place you want to be, 0-2, and and right now the Yankees, at the very least, won't be facing that, as Justin Verlander sets the Yankees down 1-2-3 in the top of the first inning. So the Houston Astros are coming up to bat, and as this Yankee game progresses, I'll give you some updates. I'm sure you're watching it anyway. Um, hopefully you have the game on mute and you're listening to me right now. I appreciate it if you're doing that. Thank you very much. And so I just want to continue now that, so we talked about the Giants earlier. The Giants had a tough loss, 35-14 to the Patriots on Thursday night. That was a big national game for them. And they really, when they were able to make the game 14-14 after the Marcus Golden fumble return for a touchdown, that was a really feel-good moment. Daniel Jones had some good plays there. He was looking pretty good. Especially, when they installed Daniel Jones as the quarterback after 0-2. I think a lot of people were kind of thinking that this was going to be a 2-14, 3-13 kind of year. And then they went out and they ripped off wins against Tampa Bay and a bad Redskins team, but they were still able to get that done. You got to tip your cap to the Giants to even their record. They took two tough losses, 28-10 to Minnesota on the chin, and they also took a tough loss to the Patriots, 38-14 last Thursday night. Brady, they kept Brady out of the end zone from a throwing perspective at least. He ran two touchdowns. He rushed them in for the first time since 2011. First time he'd done that, multiple touchdown rushes in a game for Tom Brady. That was pretty much the high point of the game, was the golden fumble return for a touchdown. And after that, the Patriots scored 21 unanswered points. So a tough way for the Giants to lose that game. But, they now their schedule lightens up a little bit. The Jets gave them a little bit of help today, beating the Cowboys. And let's talk about that for a minute. Because, as a Jets fan, these first four games has been awful, awful, awful. I mean, I remember about a week ago listening to Mike Francesa, who opened up a show talking. It was right after the Jets cleared Sam Darnold to finally play after his battle with mononucleosis that kept him out of the gameplay for a month. Luckily for the Jets, they had a bye week in that time, so it was only 3 games that he missed, but it certainly felt like forever, especially when you see what he did for this team today. Jets Cowboys at MetLife Stadium. The Jets 0-4, the Cowboys 3-2, fighting to stay in the mix in their division. And the Jets really had to protect Sam Darnold today. If you don't know mono, it's a type of sickness that affects your body. It really, really makes you lackadaisical, and it really slows you down, and it's the type of thing that really takes a toll on you. And they say that it affects your liver, and it really affects your spleen. And they really had to go out of their way to protect Sam Darnold and his spleen, because there was actually talk. I mean, listening to Sports Talk Radio at the end of the week last week, you would think that they were throwing Sam Darnold into a meat grinder. There were people that were actually calling up, all these Sports Talk Radio shows on both channels, talking about how Sam Darnold could possibly, have a fatal injury during a game, be killed. And while that might have been, a bit blown out of proportion, as we saw today, Sam Darnold didn't die. He had a very good game, in fact, and the Jets took a very good proportion because I don't know why I said proportion. The Jets took a very good outlook on this, and they really protected Sam Darnold. They had one of these football gear producers come up and create basically like a metal vest that went around Sam Darnold's entire body, covering his organs, specifically the liver and spleen. They pointed out it was an 85-pound vest type thing they put on him that really protected him. It might have slowed him down a little bit. There was a couple of plays where it looked like he was wearing a pair of lead shoes, but you can't blame him. And he went out there, and you got to tip your cap to Sam. You absolutely have to tip your cap. He went out there, he played great, and on in a lot of situations you wouldn't necessarily look at one player and see that he lifted the entire team. But when you look at the numbers of the Jets quarterbacks for the last few weeks, you know this kid was the difference. 23 of 32 today, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, tough pick in the red zone. And Le'Veon Bell finally had a pretty good game today. I mean, if you're looking at it on paper, it doesn't look great. 14 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. His long being a 13-yard carry, but the offensive line still isn't opening up holes for the guy. He's doing everything he can, but they really did a good job of balancing Darnold and giving the ball to Le'Veon. Although there was a couple of times in the second half I thought they got away from it, especially at the end of the third quarter, heading into the beginning of the fourth, that I really thought they could have done a couple of things to open up the run game a little more. But I also like the fact that Belial Powell was out there a lot today. I saw a little bit more of Ty Montgomery. So maybe the Jets are finally starting out how to use their guys. And it almost makes me think that the last couple of weeks, and I know it's crazy as it sounds, it looked to me like Adam Gase just threw his hands up in the air and just said, okay, I'm not going to show the rest of the league anything. We know we're going to take one on the chin for the next couple of weeks. We're going to take it on the chin, and then our season starts against Dallas. And boom, their season started against Dallas as they took it to the next level today. You got to really look at the top two receivers. And Robbie Anderson, 5 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. That 92-yard touchdown play, which is the Jets' long of the year, obviously. And that touchdown was the first touchdown catch that a Jets receiver had this year. As crazy as that sounds. And Jamison Crowder also a great day. 6 catches, 98 yards. Ryan Griffin, tight end, former Washington Redskin, really wasn't shown or highlighted much in this game, but boy, he had that one drive where he was hit boom, 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 right in the end zone. Him and Darnold connected, 3 catches, 28 yards on that drive. He didn't have anything else the rest of the day, but he didn't need anything else either. And the Jets had a couple of really big defensive stops. They had an early 3rd and 5 defensive stop, which really helped establish this team not letting Dallas walk all over them. They had a huge stop on 4th and 2 at the Jets' own 8-yard line. They wrapped up Prescott behind the line. And immediately after that was the 92-yard touchdown pass. So it went from being a 7-3 game where Dallas was knocking on the door trying to make it 10-7 to boom, a 14-3 Jet lead in the span of 2 plays. So they really needed that. Darnold was able to drive the team right down the field with a minute, hitting Griffin for the touchdown to make it a 21-3 lead before the half. And right before the half, actually, Dallas was able to make a really quick run to the end, got into 62-yard field goal range where I didn't think they had a chance to get that, and they did, as Dallas was able to make it 21-6 before the half, which really lifted their spirits, and you could tell coming into the second half they felt much better about their position. Then in the beginning of the second half, Dallas had a great drive right down the field, cut through the Jets with no problem at all, and the Jets made a huge stop to hold them to 3 again, 21-9. Then after that, it was 21-9, and Sam Darnold made 9 straight completions. He got the Jets to the red zone again. They were looking great, and that's when it ended up going for the interception that really gave more life to the Cowboys, and they ended up punching it in to make it 21-16 after that. Just a really great game. The Jets would add on the field goal to make it 24-16. So then everybody knew in those last 3 minutes when the Cowboys got the ball, it was going to be either they're going to need the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. And that's what this game came down to, as Dak Prescott took it in, was able to punch the ball in, make it 24-22. And when it came down to it on that final play, 2-point conversion, Dallas was not able to get it done. The Jets defense stood tall, and as I said earlier, for the first time in his Jets career, Adam Gase was able to get a win. And at home, it felt great. 0-5, your season's over. I mean, not that 0-4, is that much better, but 1-4, you got a shot. You got a shot now. You're 3 games under 500. It's not looking good, but look at this too. Everybody said, the Jets are going to open the year 0-6, 0 this, whatever. And if they had lost today, they would have opened 0-6, most likely because you play the Patriots at home next week on Monday Night Football. That's a death sentence for a lot of teams. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a death sentence for the Jets, but when you look at it this way, a lot of people had Dallas going to the Super Bowl this year. And now Dallas is no pushover. And they just came into the Jets stadium and took one on the chin. They're walking out thinking that they should be 4-2 and they're 3-3. Now the Jets could have been 0-5. They're 1-4. New England next week is going to know this is going to be a hungry Jets team. And the Jets did this today without C.J. Mosley. C.J. Mosley's going to be back next week. Most likely. I mean, you'd have to think so. The guy's been out for 6 weeks. When is he going to be back? He's missed. If he misses next week, that'll be 6 games that he's missed for the Jets this season. Or actually, no, 5 games, which would just be about double than he's missed for his entire career coming into this year. He'd only missed 3 games since 2014, his rookie season. So, typical Jets luck. And but when either way, regardless of what Mosley is, the Jets get this win, and it makes it feel, at least, like beating the Patriots is a possibility. And even if next week it's not, 1-5 feels a lot better than 0-6. And I know that's not going to make a lot of Jet fans feel that much better. I know it's not that big a deal, but it feels like the Jets season just started today. And even though it didn't, and even though there's a couple more losses hanging in there than wins, and there's surefire a good opportunity for another loss next week, it makes you feel like they have a chance. They have a quarterback who has a clue, and for the first time since week 1, that is the case, and it hasn't been. So enjoy this week, Jet fans. Enjoy this victory, because who knows how long it's going to last. Next Monday is going to be the biggest test of the year, and you have a chance, however slim it may be, to make it go from a 1-5 start where you pretty much know you're done to a 2-4 start coming off a victory against New England. Now that could be a launch pad to a team on a mission. But there's a lot of work to be done until you get there. The Patriots haven't lost yet. Their offense is their defense might be great, but their offense has been suspect at times, despite the fact that they keep putting up 30, but they've been doing it a lot of different ways with defense and special teams. So the Jets have a lot to prove. Let's see what they can do. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to take us to our first break of the day. Thank you for sticking with me here on Sports Talk 1240. We still got a lot to get to, as we're going to be talking about the Mets managerial search at some point in the second half. We'll be talking about the beginning of the hockey season for our local teams, the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Maybe we'll touch on that at the end. And we will be giving you periodic Yankee updates. So thanks for sticking. Keep it here on WGBB, and I'll catch you in a minute.
You are listening to Sports Talk 1240 on Long Island's AM 1240. WGBB. Country Foot Care, official podiatrists of the New York Lizards, have been delivering state-of-the-art foot care with good old-fashioned caring to Long Island residents for over 30 years. Specialists in sports medicine and foot injuries, Country Foot Care can be reached at 516-741-FEET or online at countryfootcare.com. Want to advertise your business on Sports Talk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and run a radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBV. Our rates are very affordable. We'll even produce the radio commercial for you. Just head over to SportsTalk1240.com and fill out the Contact Us form and let us start promoting your business today. Unflippable, unflappable, unleakable. The Gustbuster is the only umbrella that won't flip inside out, rip, tear, or leak. Capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gustbuster.com and get your Gustbuster today. Stay connected to Sports Talk 1240 by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Sports Talk 1240.
You're listening to Sports Talk 1240, broadcasting every Sunday night at 8 p.m. right here on Long Island's AM 1240 WGBD, the station that serves your community. And now, back to the show.
That's right, and thank you for keeping it here, ladies and gentlemen. And this is This Day in Sports History. This day in sports history on October 13th, 1947 was the first ever NHL All-Star Game at Maple Leafs Garden in Toronto. As the way it was played back then was the NHL All-Stars would play the defending Stanley Cup champions, which was the Maple Leafs, and the All-Stars defeated the Maple Leafs 4-3 in Toronto. On this date, October 13th, 1960, it was the Game 7 of the 1960 World Series, as the Pirates would go on to score 5 runs in the 8th inning to take a 9-7 lead in the bottom of the 8th inning of Game 7 of the World Series. Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra would drive in a pair to tie the game at 9 in the 9th inning, but Ralph Terry would give it up in the bottom of the 9th to Bill Mazeroski, who won the game 10-9. On October 13th, 1967, the first ever ABA game was played by the Oakland Oaks, who defeated the Anaheim Amigos 132-129. This was the first game that introduced the red, white, and blue ball and the three-point shot. A couple of years later, October 13th, 1971, was the first ever World Series night game, where the Pirates defeated the O's 4-3 in front of 51,000 at Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh. 2 years later, October 13th, 1973, was Game 1 of the 1973 World Series, where John Matlack would lose 2-1 to Ken Holtzman, as the A's grabbed a 1-0 lead in that series. And then the Yankees clinched 2 pennants on this date in the 90s. October 13th, 96, they clinched in Baltimore 6-4 to clinch their first pennant since 1981. And in 1998, the Yankees beat the Cleveland Indians 9-5 at Yankee Stadium en route to the greatest season ever. And thank you, that's this day in sports history. Ladies and gentlemen, the NFL season is upon us. And have you won big yet? I have, because I go to BetDSI.com. BetDSI is an A-plus rated sportsbook and has been around since 1998. In the last 20 years, they have built an impeccable reputation for great service and fast payment, combined with an excellent mobile interface so you can play, win, and get paid anywhere, anytime. For tomorrow night's Monday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, BetDSI has Detroit as a 4.5-point underdog. So a lot of people have taken Detroit plus 4.5, but I'm telling you right now, Aaron Rodgers has been off to a bad start this season, and as good as Detroit has played, I don't trust it. I expect the Packers to go out and win this game, and Aaron Rodgers to have a big game against a suspect Detroit defense. So I'm taking the Packers with the points minus 4.5. Even though they're laying 4.5 against Detroit, I like this team. Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer, and you can't beat that. Now, if you go into betdsi.com and you sign up for a new account today and use my promo code COFFEE, that's COFFEE, BetDSI will double your money up to a $500 deposit. Don't forget that at BetDSI you can bet on anything. MLB playoffs, NBA, NHL, boxing, UFC, and more. Don't stand on the sidelines. Just check them out at betdsi.com. That's betdsi.com. And use my promo code COFFEE100. Thanks, BetDSI. Alright, and thank you for sticking around here on WGBB here. I'm Rob Cramer here on Sports Talk 1240. And by the way, if you want, you can check out Sports Talk 1240 all you want on sportstalk1240.com. You can check out all of our past shows, all of the hosts, see anything else you want to know. So check that out on sportstalk1240.com. And if you want, in the second half of the show, I'd be more than happy to hear from you. Give me a call, 516-623-1240. That's 516-623-1240. And don't forget to stick around for Bill Donahue, who's coming up with a great second hour of the show, as he's having a couple of great guests from the '69 Mets. So don't hesitate. Check it out and stick with us here until 10 o'clock. Listen to the whole show. We really appreciate it. And Bill's a great guy with a great show, so you can't lose. Now, second half of the show here, I'd like to get to a couple of things, as we got hockey coming up, we got basketball coming up. We're in the throes of the football season, but there's still a couple of baseball stories, and not just the Yankees and their quest for a 28th championship. The other New York team in town has made a little bit of news, not for great reasons, as the Mets were able to go out and fire Mickey Callaway after this season. You know, they really had a great run, if you look at this year. Terrible first half where they went 40-51. I was coming on here pretty much all summer, moaning about this team, and complaining, but they were able to pull it up. When you were 40-51 in the first half, and then you go out there and you go 46, and I think the final record was 46-25 after that mark to take them to 86-76, 10 games over 500. They really had a great second half. You really can't say enough about this team, and especially from an individual standpoint. You had a guy like Jeff McNeil who went out and hit pretty much close to 350 in the first half of the season. Just having, one of the most fun first halves that I've seen in years from a Met player, and I'm talking about from a batting average standpoint. Talking about overall, Pete Alonso was out of control this year. The guy just was everything that you'd want in your big name player. He said all the right things this year. He did all the right things this year. He set the Mets club record for home runs, breaking it. It was 41 with Beltran and Todd Hundley tied for that record. He smashed it, put his name in the books at 53. He broke, Aaron Judge's rookie home run record from a couple of years ago, which a lot of people, including myself, I didn't think he had a shot at that record. I was rooting for him to break it. I'm a Met fan. But especially coming into September, man, I was thinking to myself, this guy is going to have an incredible second half of the year if he's gonna win this game, or at least an incredible an incredible September. And boy, did he go out there and do it. That guy went out there and did everything that you needed him to do. Every big spot he came up and hit a home run. I was at the doubleheader against Miami in the beginning of August, where he had a big home run in the 8th inning, and you just felt like everybody knows that this guy is the guy for the Mets. Everybody knows that the Mets want him to be their judge. And so far, the difference between Judge and Alonso, outside of the fact that Judge has been up for a couple of years and has continued his great play, although he hasn't been able to stay in the field that much outside of that rookie year. He he's been in the playoffs twice. He's been in the ALC. Well, actually, he's been in the playoffs 3 times now. He's been in the ALCS twice out of the last 3 years, and now he's looking to get to his first World Series. Pete Alonso hasn't played a playoff game yet, so he's really going to have to, be the cornerstone. And it's not his fault that the Mets, were in a playoff team this year. He did everything he could, but he's going to have to contribute to installing that winning culture in that team that they've gotten away from for the last few years. So I feel like with him winning Rookie of the Year this year, he, DeGrom, and McNeil all being all-stars. Now McNeil, has a chance maybe to win a Silver Slugger or some kind of award for the great year he had. It was a shame to see him break his hand and go down at the end of the year. And it looks like Jacob DeGrom might be closing in on his second straight Cy Young Award, where it's just shocking how bad the Mets have played. But you can't help it. The guy's the best pitcher in baseball right now. So the writers are doing the right thing and keeping him in that Cy Young mix. But as we get back to the Mets manager position, so Mickey's out the door. 163 and 161 was his record in 2 years. I was happy to see him get over 500. But right now, this is the candidates that we have. Mike Bell, Buddy, one of Buddy Bell's kids. David Bell, his brother, is a manager in the big leagues right now. He's interviewing tomorrow for this job. Currently, Mike Bell is the Diamondbacks' director of player development. So, baseball's in this guy's blood. I don't know if I really want him, but I understand why he's a candidate. Carlos Beltran, former Met great, a guy who, if he goes in the Hall of Fame, will probably be wearing a Mets cap. He's in the mix right now for the managerial job. A guy who, according to Brian Cashman, was the runner-up for Aaron Boone. And I was just listening to an interview with Cashman, which was very insightful, where he said he was ready to give Beltran the job. And he gave a interview to Aaron Boone as a courtesy, and Aaron Boone completely blew him and everyone else in the room away, and that's why Boone walked away with the job. But other than that, if he didn't extend that courtesy to Aaron Boone, there's a very good chance that Carlos Beltran is the manager of the Yankees. So that's something to keep in mind too. I wonder if the Mets are gonna keep that up there. My choice for the job is Joe Girardi, former Yankee manager, former Marlins manager, won the Manager of the Year, his only year with the managers, with the Marlins in 2006. Girardi is just one of those guys. He's got a championship to his name with the 2009 Yankees. He's a kind of no-nonsense guy, old school in a lot of respects. So you got to see how that plays. But supposedly, according to John Heyman, who's a guy who has a lot of inside scoops, right now the Mets' initial list is Mike Bell, Carlos Beltran, Joe Girardi, and Derek Shelton. Those are the 4 guys they know. They say there's also a mystery candidate who nobody knows yet. Maybe it's Dusty, maybe it's Buck Showalter. Who knows? There's somebody out there. But right now, those 2 last names that I mentioned, Buck Showalter and Dusty Baker, are both going to be interviewing in Philly. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of managerial opens right now. We haven't even touched on Joe Maddon, who a lot of Met fans were hoping would be in the running. But right now, it looks like Joe Maddon wants to go to Anaheim, and it looks like Anaheim, well, actually Los Angeles, whatever the Angels want to call themselves. It looks like the Angels want Joe Maddon, and Joe Maddon wants the Angels. So that could be a match made in heaven for them, no pun intended. And, so we'll see how that plays out. It looks like I'm very interested to see how the Cubs job plays out. Because how the Cubs job plays out and how the Phillies job plays out is really going to affect the Mets, because a lot of people expect Girardi to want to go to Chicago. He's a former Cub. He has a history in Chicago. I believe he may even have family that still lives there. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cubs choose their new manager. A lot of people are thinking that they're just going to want a first-year guy who a lot of people would consider a Theo Epstein quote-unquote puppet. Like, a lot of people see how Aaron Boone, a lot of people call him a puppet. People called Mickey Callaway, Brody Van Wagenen's puppet pretty much, and originally Sandy Alderson. And a lot of those first-year guys are considered general manager puppets. And you don't have to pay a guy big money. I mean, Mickey Callaway was only making he was making less than $1 million. And if you're going to bring in Joe Girardi, whose last Yankee salary was north of $4 million, you're going to have to, I can see a lot of these managerial salaries coming down, but you probably still have to pay Girardi around $2.5 million just to bring him in. So it's just going to depend to see if the Mets are going to cheap out or not. To see where they go from here. And, so also when you take a look at all those candidates, it's going to be Brody Van Wagenen's final call. He's the guy. I know a lot of Met fans are keen on Carlos Beltran. I don't know how I feel about that. It makes me feel good that the Yankees wanted him because the Yankees usually do things that are right. But I also think there's probably a reason why they didn't give him the job. And I also don't like the fact that Girardi is so, not Girardi, I'm sorry, Carlos Beltran, is so close to having last played in the majors. You remember, we talked about Houston earlier winning the World Series in 2017. Carlos Beltran was on that team. Carlos Beltran's only World Series ring is from the 2017 Houston Astros. So let's, you have to keep that into consideration. And speaking of those Astros, they just took a 1-0 lead on the Yankees here in the bottom of the second, as James Paxton just gave it up. A RBI double to Carlos Correa. That's a guy who you really got to keep your eyes on. Carlos Correa is a heck of a player. And, Houston's lineup, top to bottom, is just tough to beat. That's why, most people would expect it to be going back to Yankee Stadium 1-1, especially with Verlander looking like he's done against the Yankees so far, holding them hitless through 2. It's going to take a lot more hitless innings than just 2 to put them ahead, but if anybody's got it in them, I think it's Justin Verlander. So this game going to the plan right now for Houston, and that's exactly what they need. As we wind down here, the final few minutes before Bill Donahue takes over, don't miss that. He's going to have some great 69 Mets on tonight, and you can't miss that, especially 50 years after the Mets won the World Series. I was looking up, for this day in sports history, if the Mets played on this day, because I really wanted to point it out, but they played on the 12th and the 14th, so the 13th the Mets had off that day. And looking at the Mets throughout the history, October 13th has not been a nice day to the Mets in their history, so maybe it's a good thing that they had off on that date. But, so as we continue on here, there's a couple other things I'd like to touch on, as, the New York Rangers actually getting started this year. They had 3 games in the first 3 weeks. That's pretty crazy if you ask me. It's not football we're talking about either. This is hockey. As the New York Rangers won 6-4 on opening night against the Jets. They beat Ottawa 4-1 after that, and then they had to sit on the sidelines for an entire week while the Edmonton Oilers came to New York and put on a show against their division rivals as they beat the Devils and the Islanders this week. They came into an afternoon matinee game at Madison Square Garden. You don't see too many of those these days, but I'm always a fan of that. And they put on a show. This is a team who completed the New York sweep, beating the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils in all pretty much, 5 days? Great run for them. Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, that whole team is just really, really good. And I wasn't sure. I hadn't really paid attention to them since they got rid of Cam Talbot at the end of last year, who was the former Ranger goaltender who led them on their last playoff run. But the kid they have back there right now is a heck of a goaltender. So that could mean something, too, for this club as they keep going forward. They're still undefeated. So that was a a good test for the Rangers coming off that. Mika Zibanejad had 8 points in the team's first 2 games. So that was the first Rangers forward to do that since Messier did it in 1995. And their big fish free agency acquisition, Artemi Panarin, had 4 points in his first 3 games. He was held scoreless in the last game, had a goal and assist in each of his first 2, and has often looked like the best player on the ice. And he's being paid a hefty sum, $11.6 million a year, to do that. So that's it's at least working out good for the Rangers. He's considered a point-a-game player, 82 games a year. So you'd figure 82 around points for him this season. He's got 4 points in 3 games, so I'll take it. And you just ran into a tough opponent. Now the Rangers have to sit out until Thursday night, where they'll play their next game, their 4th game this season, finally, in this season's 17th day. The Rangers will play the New Jersey Devils in the first of back-to-back. They play Washington the next night on Friday night, so it's going to be fun. It's already a fun start to this season for the Rangers, as we saw Capo Caco, the Rangers' first draft pick. He was the number 2 overall. Rangers selected him number 2 after the Devils selected Jack Hughes number 1. Caco goes out, the 18-year-old Finnish kid, and scores his first NHL goal. Really good to see. Such great stick handling coming up onto the goal line too, and he just put it right in, right past the goalie, and it was a lot of fun to see. So he's on a line right now with Ryan Strome. I don't know if that's the best thing for him. I'd much rather see him pair up the kids, Coach David Quinn with Elias Anderson, but that's for him to say right now. They've got a lot of youth, and some youth that even still isn't here. They had defenseman Keandre Miller, Rangers property, who is still playing for the Wisconsin Badgers in the NCAA, and he went out there and scored 2 goals last night, which for a hockey defenseman you don't really see too often. And he went out there, knocked 2 down, so he's looking great, coming off a rocky start to his season where he was suspended for a couple of games in training camp, and there wasn't a lot being said about what rule he broke. They said he broke a team rule, but never really released the information. So see him back on the ice and playing well. All the Ranger fans who know who he is, at least, can take a real sigh of relief. So that now it's still early in the year. You just got to see how these kids are doing. You have Vitaly Kravtsov, Philip Hedl, and a couple of these other young guys playing well in the minors. So maybe in a week or two, when they get to start playing in every other day type hockey, maybe we'll see a couple of these guys come up and have a bigger impact on the big club. On the other side of town, you have the Islanders and Devils, who are both off to rocky starts. But I wouldn't really read that much into it yet. Early season hockey, the first 10 games, a lot of these teams are just trying to figure out, where they are and what they're doing. The Devils, I know, lost 3-0 last night to the Bruins. The Islanders beat the Panthers 3-2 in a shootout. So the Devils really still haven't figured themselves out yet. They had a lot of pressure with the number 1 pick 2 out of the last 3 years. You got Taylor Hall, who was one of the best forwards in hockey. They brought in PK Subban, one of the best and high-profile defensive names in hockey. So they had a lot going right. There's a lot of pressure coming on them this year because a lot of people expected after a rocky year last year that they were going to come up and have a real big year this season. Hasn't worked out that way so far, but we'll have to keep an eye on the Devils because I would not be shocked if they ended up finding themselves in the playoffs. I would not be shocked if we ended up with having all 3 of the local teams in the playoffs this year. I think the Isles did a real disservice to themselves and their team, letting their goaltender walk after last year. Whatever. I think that the guy they have running the show right now, Lou Lamoriello, the Islanders GM, is one of the smartest hockey guys out there. He's one of those type of guys that, you know, that guy would turn a profit running a lemonade stand. That guy, he's one of the best business minds out there for sports specifically, and I think that the Islanders are in good hands at least, especially bringing in the coach, locking up Anders Lee, locking up a lot of these young guys. I was surprised that Josh Ho-Sang didn't make the Islanders out of training camp this year. They put him on waivers, and I believe he cleared waivers. I was expecting the Rangers to take a shot at him, especially with a lot of these young forward spots still open for them. But he stayed with the Islanders, and it's still a young guy. We'll see how that plays out for them. And we're coming down to the final couple of minutes here. Thanks for sticking around with me here on Sports Talk 1240. The Paxton was able to get out of the inning against the Houston, still 1-0. Houston's got the lead. Justin Verlander's got a lead right now. I'm stuck in hockey right now. So Houston with a lead, giving Verlander that's an uphill battle for the Yankees right now, as they're going to have to put their comeback shoes on and really fight an uphill battle. And but if anybody can do it, I mean, you saw that Justin Verlander is not unbeatable. He got beat up by Tampa Bay in Game 4 of the ALDS. So, but granted, I will say this: Justin Verlander is a different pitcher in Houston, as are a lot of these Houston pitchers. The thing that really is going to be interesting for me to see is how Garrett Cole, whether it's 0-2 or 1-1, comes back. He's going to be in Yankee Stadium in cold weather, pitching in probably the biggest game of his life. Especially with the series last year didn't go Houston's way. That was one of the biggest series of Cole's life last year. They ended up losing, but Garrett Cole wasn't on a run. He was very good last year, but he wasn't on a run like he's currently on right now. And you really have to keep that in mind as Garrett Cole, who in his last 15 starts, has struck out 10 or more batters in every start, dating back to August. This guy is on a run like we haven't seen in baseball history. I mean, the record for 10 strikeout games coming into this season consecutively was 8. And that was set by those couple of guys. Arrieta did it, and, there's a couple other guys in recent memory. But, for the dominance that he's shown right now has never been seen in the history of baseball. He's been on a crazy run, and his team has been winning every time he takes the ball. And the Yankees would like to change that. So regardless of how it's going back to Yankee Stadium, 1-1 or 0-2, the Yankees got a guy who's been on a roll for some of the longest in baseball history. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I want to thank you for joining me here on Sports Talk 1240. We covered a lot of ground in the last hour. You're going to be covering even more ground with the great Bill Donahue. Don't forget to stick around. He's got a couple of great guests lined up for you tonight, so don't go anywhere as we get you covered for the next hour. I hope you enjoy your week. Thank you for sticking with me, and I'll catch you next time.